Okay, good morning. We're gonna start off the next recent reads. I think it's the fourth one. I am not gonna give a reading update because I haven't really finished anything since I last updated, which was Monday. It's now Wednesday, so this is probably going to be a shorter recent reads just because of, life and travel and all that sort of stuff. The plan for today, I have 4 physical books left. I need to read this one. This is part of trying to complete series, and then I have audio for the third book, and this book will determine whether or not I finish the series or I DNF it. Again, I'm not as into dystopian or post-apocalyptic as I was when I read the first one for an SASL list, so we shall see. Then I have this arc of Muddy People. Obviously couldn't find an audiobook of that. And I have Frostheart. This should read pretty quickly because it is middle grade. It is a little bit more tightly bound than I would have liked, but there are illustrations in here. So again, it should read quicker. And then I have Out of Order by Sandra Day O'Connor. This is a shorter book. So again, I hopefully should be able to finish these this week. But before I get to any of those, I'm going to finish the 8.5 novella sort of thing in the Keeper of the Lost City series, Unlocked. I just crossed the 300 page last night, read for only a half an hour. It reads quick. It's like there's a bunch of stuff put in there that's sort of basically a recap of the series, and then there's a little novella at some point. I haven't gotten to that yet. A lot of people were like, wait, we already knew all this information. Why are you telling us this again? And I'm like, I actually enjoy it because even though I've been reading it pretty much in close succession recently, it's nice to get an overview of what's happened because there's a lot there and sometimes it runs together. So that's where we are. I'm going to finish getting ready, head on into work. When I finish a book, I'll update again. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick update. It is Thursday evening. I spent most of yesterday reading Unlocked, which is 8.5 in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series. Most of the book is like recaps and catch-ups on the Keeper of the Lost Cities series, like characters and things about elfish culture and recipes and all sorts of things, which I enjoy. I enjoyed getting that catch-up because it's been a lot. I think I might have mentioned that when I talked about this yesterday or whenever I started this. So the last part of it, though, is a novella that Shannon Messenger said originally she was going to put as the opening of Stellar Loon, which I do own, and I'll get to that in a second. She was going to put it as the opening, but she realized that there were things that she wanted to talk about that didn't work with Sophie's perspective only, because these were things that happened without Sophie being there, and Sophie's the main character. She's the narrator. Basically, things happen from her point of view in the main stories, which is why she moved it into this book. The way that she has built up these characters, especially Keith, goodness, it flipped back and forth between Keith and Sophie's perspective, and every time I was in Keith's perspective, the emotions got going so much, which it's so fitting because Keith's an empath, and then his mom does this terrible thing, and that probably was a mild spoiler, sorry. But anyway, he's having to deal with the fallout from the previous book, and it's changing him significantly, both physically and his character, how he responds to things and how he deals with things. And it's, I just feel for him so much. A really big part of me wants to go get Stellar Loon and go do that one next, even though I still have several books on my TBR. I am going to hold off because Unlocked wasn't on my original TBR. I just read it because I got it from the library. I needed to finish it. So I'm going to read for about 10 more minutes tonight, and I'm going to start Frostheart because I need to get caught up on my pages goal to stay on track. And this should be fairly easy to do because it's middle grade, bigger font and illustrations. So I don't know how much I'll get read tonight. It'll probably be a little bit rough going getting into this because all I want to do is go pick up Stellar Loon, but I'll be able to handle it. Okay, so it's Saturday afternoon and I have finished another book. I finished Frostheart by Jamie Littler. I loved it. So last night, all I wanted to do was keep reading. I got a little under halfway through last night and I just absolutely adored it. So finishing it today, I knew that was gonna happen. So in Frostheart, it takes place in a fantasy world that's very wintry, and Ash, the main character, he's never known his parents because they were what were known as pathfinders. So they go out and I guess are finding paths. That's not really super explained. It's like trading or something like that. But something happens and they never come back. So the village that he's left in is now tasked with taking care of him. So I'm going to turn a little bit because of the sun. So, and I put the book down just to hold the camera easier. He is not necessarily liked, and no one necessarily really wants to have the trouble of taking care of another kid who's not their own. And on top of that, he has this magical power of song weaving, but people misunderstand its power because it's been misused. And so he's ostracized because of that and ends up in the care of Tobu, who's a Yeti, which I just loved. And Tobu, not necessarily warm and cuddly, and Ash doesn't necessarily like him at first, but he goes along with it because that's his lot in life. And then something happens that clearly reveals his song weaving nature. And the whole village is like, nope, bye, you gotta leave. Because they ascribe danger to it. And in this process, he ends up as part of the crew of another Pathfinder crew. And so it's like a nautical tale, only their ships are sleighs. And I don't understand the design of it all, but I don't care. And he found friendships and different things as part of this crew, including the youngest member of the crew, who is a girl about his age. But there's still prejudices on the crew because it's not fully understood, excuse me. So the story of this book, and it's the first in a trilogy, it's more of like a beginning to the journey, and the first thing where he's like, okay, so this is actually what I have to do. And it's where he's coming to grips with his own nature. Another thing that I love about this book are the illustrations. Jamie Littler himself does the illustrations, and they just work so well with the text, with the world. It's fantastic. And there are illustrations all throughout this. There's a handful of full page illustrations. Some are half page. Some are just around the edges. It's just phenomenal. And Ash grows up so much just in this story alone, and it's only a handful of days. So I cannot wait to continue on and read the rest of this series. Okay, so I figured I would update while I'm still wearing nice clothes and not the same Wait for President shirt that you've seen in the past few clips. I just got back from church, went to the first service this morning, and this is the outfit I'm gonna wear tomorrow. So since I am a minimalist when it comes to clothes and not with books, you know, I try to combine work/church type of clothes, even though like you don't have to dress up to go to church. Anyway, that's a tangent. So I have another book to update on, and I think what I will end up doing for these recent read videos is just update when I finish a book to make it more like a recent reads, less like a reading vlog, just because my pace of reading is such that unless it's a super long book like say Way of Kings, I'm not going to have a lot of opportunities to update in the middle of. So the book that I finished is Muddy People, a Muslim coming of age. This is an arc that I won on Library Thing. It tends to be, I guess, memoirs, the ones that I have won so far from Library Thing, which I don't mind. Most of the giveaways there for like physical copy books are from indie publishers or independent publishing. This book, when it comes to memoirs, this book kind of has everything that I have said before that I don't necessarily gravitate towards in a memoir. It's not of a person that I know, so it's not necessarily a celebrity, but like someone who I am intrigued from their lifestyle, or I've learned about them before, something like that. It's not one of those. It is not told chronologically. It jumps back and forth between things. And I think those are the two main things. But I really enjoyed this story. So the main character, Sarah, is, let's see, how would you say, Egyptian Australian? So she was born in Egypt, but has Australian citizenship when they moved there when she's about, I think, 7 or 8, because her mom has Australian citizenship from her grandparents. Well, from the Sarah's grandparents. But anyway, it's complicated. But she lives in Alexandria, Egypt for about 7-8 years before moving to Australia. So it does go roughly chronologically. The chapters have different sorts of names, and the chapters that are named with like rules, like rule number blank, they do go roughly chronologically throughout her life. So the early rule chapters are when she's younger, leading up to about high school-ish age in those chapters. And then it's interspersed with chapters that are titled with either Baba or Mama, like her parents' names. And in the chapters titled Baba, he's battling cancer. I think he's still alive. I'm not 100% sure. But in those chapters, she's an adult. So I believe she's like a middle millennial, like classic millennial age in that generation. And so she's talking through those. And then those chapters are roughly chronological, but they're at a different point than the rule chapters. And then the Mama ones are more when you're getting into the backstory of her family. So those don't go chronological. But I just really enjoyed the story and learning about a perspective that I don't share anything in common with her except for the fact that I'm a girl. That's literally the only thing that I share in common with her. So this was absolutely fascinating. Were there things that I wish she had explained and brought up more and like said how it resolved? Yes. One specifically, so she talks a lot about how as a younger kid, she was not skinny. But then there's a point in high school where I think it's correlated with her getting her period, where it's like really bad and like almost passing out sort of bad. And throughout that time, she drops a lot of weight and also is losing her hair. And she talks about that in like 1, maybe 2 chapters, but never says how that resolves. So I'm like, are you okay or are you not? And I wonder if that's not something that she's dealt with or understands, but it was part of her life at that time. So I am glad that I won this as an arc. It's not necessarily something I would pick up, but it's definitely intriguing, and I want to learn more about other people's stories, especially people who are not like me. Okay, same position as last update, but different shirt. I am going to do this one as the final update. I have one last book that I read, and that is New Kid. What I decided to do was switch this book for The Devil's Highway for my 23 and 23 list book for this month, because I had the plan of reading this one and then the third book, which I have as an arc. Only problem with that is that the third book is one of those arcs that doesn't send to Kindle. It's just that protected file or whatever that I have to read on my computer. Not going to read it on my computer today, but I'm set up to potentially finish or get caught up to a series next month or whenever I get to that. I didn't go ahead and read it on the computer today because the third one hasn't been published yet, and I'm trying to get caught up with my arcs like the ones that have been published. Now, New Kid, it's adorable. I knew that I would absolutely love it, and I did. I love all of the little nods to different like geek culture and the things that Jordan, the main character here, loves, and his art and how he is trying to fit into this new school, which is a very rich school and only marginally, you know, got their token diversity. And I thought it was just really profound. There were some things where the kids are just kind of like, they get fed up at a certain point. Like, this is not cool, lady. You don't call me by my name, and that's not right. When his teacher finds his sketchbook and is saying that he's all angry at the school and saying negative things about the school, and he's like, basically, look, lady, this is my life. These things have happened. I'm not ranting against the school. I mean, like, this happens. You don't call my friend by his name. You imply that we're on financial aid and etc. It really struck me, because that's probably the scene that got all those parents up in arms and saying, oh, it's CRT, and getting that whole author talk canceled that got this book on my radar in the first place. And it's like, literally, you guys are so dense. The book is hitting you on the forehead with the truth, and you're being as dense as the lady in the book. Well done. This is excellent. It is a little annoying that I have the hardback copy of New Kid and I have a paperback copy of, I forget what the second one is called, Class Act. But, oh well, it is what it is. I will definitely be getting a physical copy of the third one. So that wraps up this week's recent reads. Again, I am continuing on in my month of fantastic reads. I had another 5-star, and I think the rest were 4.5-star. I haven't put New Kid through CAWPILE yet. I don't know that it'll be 5-star. It'll probably be a 4.5-star, but again, January, it's gonna be probably the month of the 4.5 stars. As far as what I'm currently reading, I picked up the last book that I have physically on my TBR, and that is Out of Order by Sandra Day O'Connor. Yes, the former Supreme Court Justice. That one's going to be really easy to get through. It's less than 200 pages, and it's like a basic primer on the Supreme Court. It's on my to-read list. I'll read it. Okay. Is it going to rank very high? No, it'll probably be the lowest, one of the lowest rated for this month, but not because it's a bad book, and that's a good sign. So that's the only other physical one that I have. Well, officially on my TBR. The audiobooks that I have that I'm currently listening to, one, I thought I was going to have to physically read it, but then I found it on Hoopla. That is The Infinite Sea, which is book 2 in the Fifth Wave trilogy. I just started that, and again, I'm like, is this bad? Am I enjoying it? It's not bad. I am enjoying it, but I'm not in the post-apocalyptic genre. That's not my cup of tea, basically. I'm only barely into it though. I'm about 25% of the way into it. It is interesting though, because we've had 3 perspectives so far. 2 of them have, they've concluded, Rick Yancey's concluded the section for him, and the way that he concluded the section for the first 2 perspectives is like cliffhanger, like, oh no, what's gonna happen next? First time I'm like, okay. Second time I'm like, really? Okay. So that's a trope, and that's a choice. We shall see if he keeps that up. I don't know how he could, but moving on. I do also have an audio copy of the 3rd book in that series, The Last Star, I think is what it's called. I also have an audiobook copy of, A Man Called Ove, or Ube, or however that's pronounced, or Otto, like they had to change it for the Tom Hanks adaptation. I still want to see it, but I probably won't see it in the theater. I think I'd have to go like this week if I wanted to. Obviously I'm going to read the book before that. So those 3 are the last 3 that I have officially on my TBR. And then I'm reading all of those via audiobook. I do also have 2 more books that are ARCs that I have on my Kindle, but I have physical copies of. And those are it's the second in the Magic Steeped in Poison duology. It's a Venom something, and I don't remember what the rest of that is. And then Gleanings, which is short stories from the world of the Arc of the Scythe. I'm moving right along with what I have, made good progress on ARCs, and now I have to start thinking about what I'm going to do for February. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.